So Home Affairs Minister Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi has blamed a private security company contracted at the Lindela Repatriation Centre for the escaping of 37 inmates. Now, the inmates were awaiting deportation and escaped last weekend when the guards abandoned their post over a dispute with their employer. Now, the minister joins us on the line now for a bit more on this. Minister Motsoaledi, thanks very much for your time. Once again, welcome to Newsroom Africa. So there are many moving parts to the story. Perhaps we should start by getting a sense of what involvement, if any, the Home Affairs Department actually has with the Lindela Repatriation Centre.
Just come again, what's your question?
As a sort of way to ensure that we're all on the same page, I was just asking you to detail what involvement you would have as a department at the Lindela Repatriation Centre before we speak about many other issues.
No, remember the Lindela Repatriation Centre is a government repatriation centre officially where people who have appeared in front of a magistrate and the magistrate has approved the repatriation, where they are sent for 30 days in order to be processed, and they call their embassies and their countries to identify them and then deport them back home. But now the facility was owned and leased by government, was owned by Outsourced. You remember the Outsourced company, which has since been liquidated. They owned it, but Home Affairs had also given them a contract to run it. In other words, to run the security, the food supplies, and the health of the inmates there. It was all run by that private company. Now, Outsourced got liquidated. The liquidators then hired another company, which we inherited. That is the company that is running Outsourced at the moment. We inherited it, and they give them a one-year contract, which expires in November this year. So all the processes there, the food services, the security, the health, is actually provided that company, and that's what they have been paid for.
And you're alleging that the company is actually at the center of the escape of these 37 inmates, suggesting that this was in fact an inside job. Give us an idea of what you're basing that on.
Well, there are two events that coincided there, which conspired. Two events. Firstly, you are aware that during the lockdown, the normal process of repatriation had stopped. So the Basotho National went on a riot, saying they want to go home here and now and stop all the other process of repatriation. They went on a riot. At the same time, the security guards were disgruntled with their employer. And so they collaborated with each other, because from the information we could gather, the security guard then told the rioters that we are leaving before time on Sunday. You can do what you want. And indeed, they left at 2 o'clock, and they claimed that there was no contract to work, whatever. But, those are issues between them and the employer. They left at 2 o'clock, and I understand they tipped them that there will be very few guards or no guards at the premises. You can do what you want. And indeed, at 5 o'clock, they started scaling the walls and mass and jumping the fence and running away. It's not that it was done secretly, because at Lindela, and that there is a 24-hour security room with security cameras that look at all the corners of the facility. So the security camera people who manned the security cameras for 24 hours, they actually saw them climbing the walls. But because there were no guards there, or there were very few guards, they actually got overwhelmed. And they called police. By the time police came, 37 people had already escaped.
Right. Give us an idea of, the extent to which the Home Affairs Department itself would be involved if it is found that, guards are not happy with their working conditions. I mean, give us an idea of where your intervention would start and end, even though the operations of that facility has actually been outsourced to a private company.
Well, the inmates there have been sent by us, so we take responsibility for them. But we don't take responsibility for the disgruntlement of the security staff there. We will deal with the company will deal with them. And indeed, it has already suspended them. But this is what we have already done. When I left there, I left at 25 to 12. I was rushing to a meeting. But at 2 o'clock, there was another riot. The pictures which you are showing on the screen of no social distance, people, the place being congested and all that, were taken during the riot deliberately. So there was another riot that took place at 2 But the security guards who take these photos and send them outside were not there because they've been suspended. So you don't even know about the riot that took place at 2 o'clock. I soon realized that we are not going to control this situation. The people who started the riot are Basotho nationals. I immediately phoned Lesotho, spoke to the Minister of Home Affairs, and told them I'm making arrangements to take Basotho home. I reported to the matter to the National Command Structure, fortunately, which also said at 2 o'clock yesterday, chaired by the President. I reported the matter to them. They agreed with me that indeed we must take the Basotho back home as soon as possible. And I can report to you, Ayanda, that 4:30 this morning, 94 Basotho left Lindela. They are now en route to Masori border post. And this morning, we have called the Zimbabwean embassy because there are about 500 Zimbabweans there. We want to do the same process. If possible, send them back home today or before the end of the week, and we'll do so with all the other nationals. There's no way of resolving a situation where people are collaborating with each other against the government, both the inmates and the security guards. We don't employ the security guards. The inmates are adults. If they don't want social distancing, what do you do? The riot yesterday was specifically about that they don't want to be locked in the rooms. They want to mingle with each other. They don't want social distancing. They want to live their normal life in the facility. And then send photos out and say, we're being exposed to COVID-19 here. So it's an untenable situation. That's why the company did their bit by suspending those security guards, and we're doing our bit by sending people back home where they come from.
I guess many people will be asking why this couldn't have been done earlier. But you mentioned that this is an attempt by mostly Basotho nationals. What do we know about the 37 migrants who've now escaped? I mean, do we have any information about where they're from and how it is that it is specifically those 37 that managed to get out?
I think we'll get that information this morning because they are still processing. Remember, police are still following up. So, but we know that the ones who started the main riot and be joined by other nationals, we know that they are Basotho. That's why all 94 of them left. As to how many among those who escaped are Basotho or any other national, that information we don't know yet.
Okay, so we heard yesterday that SAA might stop operating from as soon as tomorrow. How would that affect the repatriation efforts that you're planning, especially considering the fact, for instance, that you're planning to get, for instance, some Zimbabweans back home? Give us an idea of how this will affect your plans and your efforts to solve this issue.
Well, fortunately, as we said, 94 are Basotho. They don't need any plane. They left 4:30 this morning via the road. Zimbabweans will also leave via the road. There are about 570 of them, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere around there, but definitely more than 500. They'll also go on the road. We have not yet identified any nationals, which we need to take back home immediately, which will need any flight. We have not yet arrived there. But we know that most of the people are from SADC region, and they can be repatriated via the road.
Okay, all right. We'll be closely watching to see how that goes, but let's leave things there, please, for now.